Welcome back to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by the co-host Anthony Bigliarino. And today we have a special guest that is Justin Copeland from Navigating the Intentional Life. Justin, welcome to the show.
Zac, I appreciate it. Anthony, you guys, good morning. Absolute honor to be on with you guys this morning and start chopping some things up.
I mean, let's talk about it, man. Yesterday was the pinnacle. You know, it's the holiday for many. Christmas Day yesterday. And today, here we are chopping it up and mixing things, talking fatherhood and family. Before we go into the subject and what Navigating the Intentional Life is all about, how was your Christmas, man?
It was great, man. We got to stay home for the first time in years. We didn't have to travel. A lot of my family is up north in Oklahoma. So we did the whole get up, wear your PJ pants, get the coffee and the hot cocoa going and open up presents. And I had to tell you, those little moments, man, I couldn't get enough of it. So it was really good. Very much enjoyed that time, just the three of us. And, also glad the holiday is over. So
there is a buildup, man. Like there really is everything builds up to it. And then the day happens. And then today you wake up and you're like, woo, all right, what now?
Yeah.
Anthony, how was your Christmas?
My Christmas was excellent. We first Christmas in South Carolina. We actually went to the beach. It was about 70 degrees plus, and it was good, man. We relaxed, stayed home, had family dinner, and that was it. Just enjoyed the day, man. Enjoyed the family time.
That's exactly what we did. You know, mix it up, stayed connected, had a great time. It was a good time. It was peaceful. And speaking of peaceful, it just makes sense. We're talking about peaceful parenting. We're talking about bringing connection to the home, being an involved father. And one of the things that I notice is in families where the men they have themselves locked in. They're dialed in. They're working on improving all those aspects and angles of themselves. They're living intentionally. And what better man to have on than Mr. Intentional Life, Justin Copeland. Justin, the dudes, like I said, the guys who are they're stressed out on Christmas. They're struggling with the family. Everybody's fighting and bickering. They're never coming from a home where everybody's living intentionally. And that's exactly what you talk about. So could you explain to us what Navigating the Intentional Life is all about?
Yeah. So I was one of those guys, Zac, 8-9 months ago. I was not. And I knew I'm one of those, I'm going to look inside myself quite a bit and I'm going to be my own worst critic most of the time. And it kind of came to me, I've got to do more. There are things I want to do, goals that I want to achieve, and getting a message out as far as men stepping up. I was like, man, I've been living that for most of my life, but especially in the last 4 years as a single father, it was important to me to go, okay, what am I doing? What am I leaving for my boys? And it kind of came across me through some reading, like, each day has got to be a day that I'm working to make tomorrow better for myself, for them. And it just kind of came together, man. Like at times I wish I would have picked a different or a shorter title for everything that I do. But, it hits home for me going navigating the intentional life. Like I'm living every day intentionally. And as a man, that's what I'm providing to my sons. That's what I'm providing to the people and peers around me, to ideally give them that same drive, that same kind of light bulb moment where I say, hey, I can do this too. And so I started the blog, Navigating the Intentional Life, the podcast. That podcast is actually something that you can find on Apple and Spotify. And then also my Instagram page where I get a lot of my content out. That's Justin Copeland _. And so I started posting there. Met you guys, and since then the route that we have been on with Navigating the Intentional Life has really started to take off, and the community of men that have started to come to that and start to ask those questions and start to do things like what we're doing right now this morning, whether it's talking about how I am as a leader in my family and my community to how I am as a father, and somebody that takes care of their children and takes pride in the fact that my family is going to come first.
One of the things that Anthony and I are exceptional at, it's amplifying those who are already pushing the message. When you see it, you just see it. You understand it. Anthony and I, through FOE, through conversations on here, I mean, there's no coincidence that we both ended up on the podcast, and here we are together again and again and again. We saw what you had to say in that podcast and who you were and the message you're putting out, and it's 100% aligned with where it is we're trying to go, the direction of this movement, which is more intentional fathers who have themselves locked in, and they can branch that out and extend it to the family. So you're good, and now you can help them be good as well. You can show them through your actions what it's all about. So we went on that podcast, And then we recently linked up in the cigar lounge. How are you finding yourself moving in this direction as a father? So we had that cigar lounge. What led you to doing that? That's the next step, right? I mean, face to face, looking at it, going out there, you're live.
Man, I'm glad that you brought that up. And I think you guys are probably aware of this regardless of circumstance. But when it comes to specifically being a man that's a single father, there's not a lot out there for guys. There's not a lot of information when it comes to, hey, you can be a part of this. And if I were to come to you and say, hey, Zac, I think you need to try out this group. Well, as a man, I think we kind of recoil instantly and go, no, hey, I got this, man. I don't need to go and share these feelings with a bunch of other guys. I felt that as being something that's kind of a systemic problem inside men. And so when I started looking at what you were doing with the Fraternity of Excellence and some of these other things that are out there, there's not a lot. But guys are yearning for it. They're absolutely looking for it, specifically in the single father world. And I get a lot of that traffic through Navigating the Intentional Life. These guys that are going, I don't know what to do, man. Like, I just lost custody of my kids, or I'm about to lose custody of my kids. How do I fight? And so with the cigar lounge, I said, let's set a standard. How do I get to you directly and you're not just reading my posts on Twitter or whatever? I can look you in the face. I can hear your actual issues or your wants or your needs or your motivations. And then, hey, look, we can try to link up and make you better together. And so we talk about accountability. That was the first one. But there's a responsibility there that now I carry, that we carry in what we're doing and putting out through Navigating the Intentional Life, through the Family Alpha, all of that. And Peaceful Fathers to say, guys, this is what we need to do. This is where you can come to find that group around you. So that's to me where that comes together, as far as that the cigar room goes, of being able to express those needs and those wants and feeling like you're with a bunch of guys that understand and want the same thing.
Anthony, was it quick for you when you were writing on Peaceful Fathers, from going from wanting to put your message out to wanting to sort of be in an arena or a stadium or just a group where you can have that discussion with other people instead of just standing on your lone podium, just speaking out to the masses?
Was it quick? No, I mean, I think it like anything, right? It takes a long time to realize what's going on and where you want to be and how you want to build it. And like Justin was saying, man, there's not a lot out there, right? There's not a lot supporting fathers, and especially single fathers, divorced fathers, but there's not a lot in general supporting fathers raising kids, right? That's why I talk about peaceful parenting. It's something that is so abnormal and not speaking about enough. So of course you're going to have men getting together and they're going to say, hey, what does real leadership look like? What does it mean to be a real man, right? How do we become better fathers? When most of us were obviously raised by our dads and our grandfathers and generations of the past, where they didn't really focus too much on fatherhood, right? It was provide, protect, and now we're in this stage where we're starting to understand how important being a father is, right? How important our influence is, and the better that we become as being good men, how that radiates to our family and to our kids. I mean, Justin has 2 boys. What a great example he's setting, right? He's changing his legacy in his family right now by eliminating violence from the home, right? By eliminating things that might be detrimental or cause damage or dysfunction later on in his son's lives. And he's living intentional, right? He's saying, I'm going to make changes. I'm going to be a good man. I'm going to learn to have patience. I'm going to learn to communicate to my boys. I'm going to show them what real strength is. And I don't think we've really seen that in society, right? This is something new. So when I get together with Zac, we talk to Justin, right? We're putting these bricks in place that is going to build a crazy masculine foundation, castle, whatever you want to call it, right? There's a future process being built here before we don't even really realize it yet. And all the groups we link up with, all the men we talk to, a big key focus is parenting. So for me, it's cool to see, right, the progress. And this is only within a couple of years. So I guess, yeah, it does happen quick.
As you're saying that and thinking about Justin, the way that you're doing this solo. So Anthony and I are doing this, but we have our spouses to help us. Something I want to point out, and I hope it's not lost on anybody watching or listening to this. we live in a world where during the daylight, everybody's walking around, they're spread out, they're free. But certain men during the day are grabbing wood, are making connections, are making partnerships. And when that sun starts to set, people kind of freak out. Like when things get hard, they're panicking. We're seeing it on a mass level right now because things are getting the comfortable times are passing. And the darker it gets, people are starting to see the fires that are burning from the men who've been collecting, they've been putting in the work. And this is just to paint the picture, but let's be literal. The men who have been paying attention to what the government's doing, have been positioning their funds, have been locking in their bodies, have been locking in their spirits. Those men are the bonfire. And as things get dark, people gravitate towards it. So as we do this, we're teaching our kids this. As we do this, we're looking further down the line. Justin, with you, you're doing this solo. And there are a lot of single dads who, when presented with the situation you're in, they kind of throw their hands in there. Well, I tried. It didn't work. Fuck it. The system's going to hold me down. And, this is just me. And I'll see them every now and then. I can't be a good dad because she has them. Now, I know your situation, you've got the full time, but I'm not going to say you're the exception. There were just fewer men who can say what you can say. The masses, they're like, screw it. I'm just the weekend dad and that's it. And they'd stop building that fire. But you didn't. And so your message really does stand out when the sun's setting and things are getting dark and single dads are looking for a fire to go to from somebody who understands what they're going through. I understand what it is to be a dad. I don't understand what it is to be a divorced dad. You do. So there are men going to you saying, hey man, how are you doing this? So I'm going to ask that direct question. How are you, with sole custody of 2 children, building yourself up, preparing them for the world, and living the intentional life you're talking about? And how can other men do the same?
So first off, I want to touch on something, the analogy that you kind of made. The beautiful thing about the dark is that it helps you see the light. And the first moment for me, I mean, look, when Mason was born, my oldest son, I knew what I wanted to be as a father. I knew how I wanted to be because of how I was raised. I just looked at that blueprint and said, I want to take and do things that fit for me, and I want to do things differently. So that was there immediately. And I think as dads, we have to change that shift to what Anthony was saying is it's not just my job to go earn a paycheck, come home, sit on the couch, go to sleep, rinse, wash, and repeat, right? I want to be involved with everything that my kids are doing. Boy or girl, I want to be involved. I'm going to be there every damn step of the way. So if you don't have that realization, first and foremost, you've got to get there. If you haven't yet, there's something wrong. The other thing about this is, I get asked this question a lot. And it's part of why I built Navigating the Intentional Life. I am alone. I come home and when my head hits the pillow, I'm by myself. How the night ended with my boys can always vary, right? As fathers, they get on one. It might be a more difficult evening, whatever. But I'm by myself, yes. The beautiful thing about starting Navigating the Intentional Life, besides what I'm about to talk about, is I started to build a community around me where I could talk to or look at what somebody like Anthony is putting out about how you are perceiving your role as a man, as a father to your children. Do I want them to grow up to be like me? I'm not trying to produce mini me's. I don't want them to be me. I told my son just a few days ago, I want you to be better than me. Your best version, better than me. But outside of that community and seeing you guys and what you do and these other men that are out there trying to do it, I also have a support system around me. I don't have a slew of babysitters. I don't mean that. I've got close friends that want to see me succeed for those boys because they love my boys. I put a post up not long ago for single parents in general, not just men, but single parents. If you don't have that support network, you got to figure it out. Go to church, go to the gym, right? Get involved in ways, whether it's their extracurricular activities and sports, that you start to build that network, because it's not just for you and going like, oh, I can throw my hands back now, they're gone, I can get a break. No, it's so that you can allow them to have these other role models in their lives as well. So from there, the way I look at it is pretty simple. It's kind of an Elon Musk type quote, like, they didn't choose to be my sons. I chose to have children. And so with that responsibility, I have to man up to that. It's not their fault that I'm their dad. It's not their fault that their mom is their mom. So when someone asks, like, how do you do it? It's like, well, because they're my damn kids. So I'm, as a man, responsible of stepping up for that. From there, If I want to talk about breaking a generational curse from my family to my boys and their future families, then I've got to set that standard now. And that is putting my head down, doing the work when it comes to navigating the intentional life. We talk about, it's a lot of time management, being organized in that regard of saying, this is what we're going to do, kind of Sean Whalen core 4 kind of thing. Like, this is what we're doing today in this capacity. This is what we're doing today in this capacity. And this is when I'm turning my damn phone off so that they know that I'm here and I'm in tune. And so all of that comes together, and it's kind of like the foundation of, this is what I'm going to do daily. This is what I'm going to be intentional with my sons on a day-to-day basis, so they can start to put their own blueprint and their own foundation together for how they want to be as they venture into their own manhood. And I think that's a long way around the barn to answer your question, but that literally is the fundamentals of what I do on a day-to-day basis with my kids. I think that's simplistic, but that's it. They're my kids. That's my responsibility.
No, that's well said.
It's just, it is a question I get a lot. And I know it's, when you have a spouse and you're, thankfully neither one of you are having to do what I'm having to do. I wouldn't want you to. It's not a cap I wear with pride, because my boys want their mom. They want to see the other spouse. And I've said having to wear both hats has made me better, because I think about the fact that I'm not naturally built to be so nurturing, not like a woman. So I have to make time and literally think to myself, it's a choice. I think like, hey, I need to go hug them a little bit longer. I need to, make sure that my 9-year-old is good when he goes to bed at night. He hasn't had a tough day or whatever, that he feels good and he feels safe and he's accepted. And that affirmation is there. As guys, I don't know that we always think about that, because again, genetically, we're just not built for that. We're a bit more logical and rational. I'm not saying women aren't, but you guys get what I'm saying. But it challenges that women right now are going to go, oh my God. But, it's something that I have to think about, and I make that choice daily. And it's made me better, not just how I treat them, but how I interact with other men, the empathy or the sympathy that I might have for their circumstance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, think about how many fathers are married, have kids, and they still feel like victims, right? They still say, I can't do this. This is too tough. I don't know how to raise my kid to be confident and resilient, right? I have to scream and yell at them. I have to punish them. I have to hit them. This is really frustrating. I don't know what to do. And here you are doing it yourself. So to me, it's a complete, like how you see life, how you look at things. Are you going to be a victim, or are you going to say, hey, this is my life. How great can I make it? And I think when you go down that path, right, instead of seeing everything like an obstacle, as you start to push down the barriers, not that life becomes easy, but what you're doing becomes normal, right? You're just living a good life. You're being a good man. So you don't have to try to fake it or act a certain way. You just say, hey, I'm going to wake up today. We're going to be intentional with our time. We're going to be intentional with our words. We're going to talk to our kids. My sons are going to get warmth and love and connection from me. And then when something pops up later that's difficult, they're going to see my grit and they're going to see my dedication to pushing past my fears. And that's how we raise our kids to follow our examples. A lot of the times I talk to so many men and they're like, my kids are unmotivated. My kids are lazy. My kids are depressed, right? My kids don't want to do anything. They're always sad. And I have to always scream and yell at them. Well, what example are you setting them? Are you showing them that you're a victim? And 9 times out of 10, absolutely, right? There's fathers who are unmotivated. They're not confident or proud of the life that they're building. And of course, that's going to be the example you set your kids. So when I see dudes like you going out and crushing it, and then I see pictures of your boys, and I'm like, yeah, man, these 2 young men are going to be excellent when they grow up. I can't even complain about the shit that I go through, right? I see my kids going, and I'm like, man, if Justin's doing it, I got to keep going, right? I have the wife supporting me, and it's cool to see. And I think we need more fathers. What me and Zac do, we talk to men all the time, and we try to convince them that fatherhood is great, right? That you have to have a good mindset going into it. And then when we see, we speak to a man like you who's under certain pressure, right? More pressure or a more difficult path, and you're still crushing it. What more do men need to see, right? right? To keep them motivated and keep them pushing forward, man. So it's great to see what you're doing, Justin.
I appreciate that. That what you said will get me emotional real quick because I take it very seriously. But you guys know, because you've started and you guys have had the success that you guys have had, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in excuse me, the brands that you guys have started, and the leadership that you've been able to provide to other guys, is that it legitimately is a choice, right? You choose to either do or you choose to not do. And when we start talking about what I'm showing for these kids, and the examples that where I'm providing, I can talk, I can articulate, and I can say a bunch of great shit. But if I'm not showing them through my actions, it's lost, right? You forget what you're told, right? So you got to be able to do, and stepping up to fight for my kids, I was scared. And a lot of guys that you're talking about, these dads that may be going through something, it's a divorce or whatever. Yeah, you can feel like the system's stacked up against you, but it's the perception. I remember waking up one morning when I was getting close to our first hearing, and I thought, how lucky am I? I'm not happy with the situation that we're in. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I get to fight for my kids. I get to show my kids that regardless of anything, I'm going to stand up. Because a lot of parents say it. A lot of parents say it. I would do anything for my kids. Well, that's easy to say when everything's fine. There's no storm that's hit yet. How are you going to stand up when the storm comes in? And for me, I thought this is a unique position that I'm in to be able to stand up and say, no, you will not ever question your value to me. Whatever the system says, and I think we're all the same way, I would rather go out on my sword than sit back and watch and let somebody else dictate what I do, what I show my sons, and allow them to make up their own perceptions of how I feel about them. I'm going to show them. And show is the word. Like, it's that action, right? It's a tangible thing that I'm able to do where I do feel fortunate. I do feel lucky that I can do something that thankfully a lot of other parents, a lot of other men are not necessarily having to do. So it's that perception.
From your angle, though, how do we reach the men who are still plugged in?
So I think first and foremost, we have to get to these men, whether it's through these mediums like Navigating the Intentional Life, through Oak and Rock, and being able to say, guys, hey, this is here, right? If you have questions, if you're hurting, if you're confused, you're scared, come in and listen to us, right? Because that path to change, you've got to start understanding that there are other options. Because when we get in the middle of something, it can feel like there's no other way out, right? We feel like everything's on top of us. And as guys, we carry that load on our shoulders probably far more than we need to. And so when you find yourself in the situation, it's like, look for what you can control right now. Reach out, come into a cigar room, get into FOE, and start asking the questions, right? Look for those guys that are further along. I mean, I'm a part of these same groups, and I've got guys that are in the raw part of a divorce that's happening in the custody battle, and they're lost, man. And so they'll start asking questions and like, hey, look, you got everything right here, and you're trying to grab all these different things at the same time. Let's focus on one thing. Whatever that path is that you're on, wherever you're at in that walk, like, let's focus on this one thing. Here's what you can do, whether it's reaching out to an attorney, whether it's making sure we're doing this or this. Start there. There's nothing stupid about asking for help. And looking,
there's something to what you said earlier that's bouncing around, and you said I made a choice, and guys have to make the choice, and I think that is also lost. What you were just saying made me realize men are waiting for permission. I need permission to be a good dad. I need permission to take control over the direction of my life. And I saw a quote from Elon Musk. So you brought him up and put in my head. He said, we're part cyborg. He said, because of our phone being an extension of us and how we connect to the world, we're part machine now. And he said that the issue is the relay between these two is slow. I have to grab my phone. I have to touch the thing instead of just going there. So there is an element of humanity to it. But as you're talking, I'm realizing Men are waiting for this thing to give them permission to change their life. They're looking at the TV, the computer monitor, and they're waiting for some government employee somewhere who is elected to office or politician or whatever to say, all right, and now you're allowed to take your children and go do this thing, even though there's a rule saying you can't do it. And it really hit me. I recently dropped a tweet saying, if the playground says closed because of COVID, and you're with your children at a park and there's no one around you, and there's a little sign that says don't go on this, are you really not going to go on that playground?
Dude, don't be telling people to break the law, first of all.
I didn't say law. I said rules. I'm taking the Arnold Schwarzenegger approach. He did not say break the law. He said break the rules. I'm saying the same very intentionally because we're with Justin on navigating the intentional life. These guys, you know, they're out there in the park or the swings. Only 2 swings. Make sure you're masked. No, I don't need permission from you to do this. But I am thinking that these men, when it comes to that next step, so it's cool to take shots at these guys who are doing the mask and the social distancing. Yeah, that's funny. What's less funny is the men who are sitting there watching show after show, buying all the bullshit, eating all the bullshit, because that's what they're seeing. And they're saying they're allowed to do that. But they're not saying, fuck this. I'm going to take my kids and we're going to go camping in our backyard for 2 days in a row. We're going to have a challenge. You can only go inside to go bathroom, come back out. You know, or, I mean, insert any event you can do with your kids. But what we're doing is we're seeing the men who do break free, who do make the choice to say, I don't need your permission. I want to be better. My kids need better. I need to be better. Making that choice is what's leading to all this growth. And those who are looking for permission, who are making that choice, they're getting worse. They're doubling down on the things that are hurting them and keeping them from their goal. So when I say helping the men who are plugged in, I'm realizing, you know, through what you were just saying, and then along with kind of where I'm going with this, we have to get to the guy who is still watching the screen that thinks it's normal to feel like shit and be fighting every day. They think that's what a family is. To them, that is doing it right. And so it's going to be much more difficult for us. And unfortunately, many of you are going to be left behind in this process. They're going to go all in. They're going to triple shot their kids. They're going to make sure they're masked. They're going to keep them in the home. And it's just horrible. So all we can do is what we're doing. Just making as much content and living that example.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump in on that because I talked to my boys about this. We kind of saying like unplug to plug in. You know, that's what I was saying of when, as you were talking, is there's too much. I mean, yeah, we got the phones and everything's so accessible just within the touch of our fingertips. But what really hit me a year ago was, where's the quality time that I'm creating? Not just finding, like I'm not just going to stumble into, but I'm intentionally creating for myself and my kids. And a lot of guys leave that up to the woman. A lot of guys leave that up to the wife to plan. Hey, that we're going to go do this. Here's these family pictures with these stupid PJ pants. Like, here's what we're doing today. You just come along. And it is to a point like getting permission or being told this is the schedule that you're going to follow after you stop working. Right. And so you kind of sit back and you just go along for the ride. Well, in my situation, and as a single parent, you go, no, I'm going to step up. Like, I'm going to be the one that takes charge of what this time looks like, because it's so short. It is absolutely so short. And to a point that Anthony made earlier about these guys are like, my kids are this, and they only want to play their video games, and they're just, I'm losing my mind. I can't connect. It's like, well, disconnect them. Get their ass outside. It's amazing what some natural vitamin D will do for everybody, yourself included. Those moments of getting out with your kids, whether it's going to the park and not giving a shit about a COVID sign, or it's, you know, going and just enjoying being outside. I don't care what it is. Get them away from the screen. And that's a real simplistic thing. But I know that when my kids are acting up more, I don't look at the actual action and their behavior. I look at why that behavior is there in the first place. And I go, man, we've had too much TV time. There's a noticeable difference in how they are, who they are, when they are so plugged into all these damn screens that they've got. Now, the irony of me in saying that is like, look at what we're doing right now. We utilize this as a fucking tool. This is my hammer, right? And I didn't make that up. I read that somewhere, but this is my hammer. It's yours, right? Like that, and that hit me. I was like, it's fucking true. What a better way to give back. What a better way to show my kids, like, hey, we can build a legacy in so many different ways, right? Let's do this together. So if I am plugged into this with them, Is my son sitting down and helping me with a podcast? Is my son showing me how to take a picture and put it into this thing so that I can do this because I'm technologically ignorant, And so these are things that we are now able to take what is essentially my job and make it a bonding time. And those experiences are everywhere. You just have to want to do it, right? And a lot of guys miss that because we are programmed and it's predetermined that we pay the bills. We, like you said, protect, provide. And when I'm home, I've done my part. Hey, kids, now go because I want to watch the ball game. And it's wrong.
Yeah, no, and that's an excellent point, Justin. As you're going through that, I was thinking about solutions, right? Why this is happening, how we can solve it, how we can fix it, more advice that we can give fathers to help them. And, I was thinking about you and Zac are both talking about men who are in the system, right? Who are programmed to be a certain way, to be afraid and obviously a lot of this conditioning comes from childhood. So we have to find a balance with our kids, right? We can't be dads who say that we're going to control every aspect and element of our sons' lives or even our daughters' lives, right? We're going to tell them what they can do, when they can't do it, how they have to do it, what's the right way, right? What's the wrong way? Have this over-controlling, overbearing fatherhood presence. And then when they grow up to face the same problems that we're trying to push past or help other men cure, right? We have to see where it's coming from. And I know with me, as I started to notice it in my parenting, right? As I started to notice, hey, this isn't the dad I want to be. I want to learn how to communicate better. I want to learn how to negotiate and be able to reason with my kids instead of yelling. But once I did that, right, it automatically improved who I was. So there's kind of like a two-way street to healing this problem, right? The more we can focus in on fatherhood and learn how to treat our kids better, the more advantageous it is for us as men. And there's my cue.
No, it's good. That was a good setup. This again, family friendly show. If we didn't have the dogs or somebody walking in, is it really Oak and Rock? I don't think so. But to Justin, I'm gonna piggyback on what he's saying there. To you, these guys, we're talking about. We can change the trajectory. Like a lot of this is coming, and you're doing it with your boys. They could have been just like you, but now they're gonna be different than you. Because you're balancing that. You're not saying, all right, no technology. You're saying, here's how we use technology. You're not saying blindly listen to me. Let's have the discussion. And Jackie said it just yesterday because it was Christmas. So emotions were all over the place. And at one point, we were butting heads and the next one were giving hugs. And one of the things she said is, I can't believe that they talk back to you. And we were talking like neither of us would ever have spoken back to our parents. And not in a rude or crass way, but just here's my point. And then like my son, he gave me a counterpoint. Well, what about this? And I told her, I was like, I love that. So it's going against a lot of the conditioning that I was in. And it seems like you're doing the same. You're breaking and you're evolving. You're taking a lot of things that worked from your dad, things that didn't work. You're taking what your boys have been through, and you're kind of creating this hybrid of old school lessons, new school lessons, life lived lessons, and then their individual, which is the biggest variable. You don't really know who they are because you're learning with your oldest. Every day is a new PR for you and each of us with our oldest kid because we've never raised a kid that age.
Right.
So how are you bringing all that together?
So I think it's interesting. You hit on some really good things there. So much of parenting with what we grew up in was kind of that seen but not heard mentality, right? And so what that parenting does, that style, it programs you to almost conform right out of the gate, right? You don't speak up. You don't share your thoughts right away. And so there's a kind of de-evolution as you become a younger man of, okay, how do I step up for myself? Where are the questions that I have for my father that maybe weren't answered? So with my 14-year-old, my kids are definitely seen, man. And as much as they're seen, they're more so heard. And I love it. They're very respectful. They're very good kids. I don't have an issue with them when we're out in public. But I have the same grind with my 14-year-old that you're talking about, where there are times where I say, hey, you need to do this. And he said, well, why? What about this? And who's going to sit there and not go, that's frustrating as hell sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, come on, dude. You're going to make me, Homer Simpson you real quick. But
the hell does that mean?
I've got to nurture that strong will, right? And so I need to teach problem resolution. If he's struggling in school, well, why are you struggling in school? Let's get to the root of it. What are you missing in the coursework? Is it the subject matter? And I carry that over into their lives. My 9-year-old, very different personality. And that's the point I wanted to get to is, as a parent, it's like coaching. It's exactly like coaching. The best, they manage better than anybody else. They know their players. So you have to know your kids. What works for my 14-year-old does not work for my 9-year-old, because they are two separate fucking people. Just because they're kids does not mean you get to put them in a special little kid box and say, you're going to do this because I said this is what you're going to do. So when you're 20, you're going to continue to say yes to the man, right? I want you to understand that I know you are two different people, and we are going to nurture those needs and wants singularly and separately, right? And it's a challenge, and not everybody wants to step up to that. Not everybody wants to accept that. I don't want to call it a burden, but man, it sure is difficult sometimes. So, to your point, I love the fact that you're like, yeah, they talk back, right? Respectfully, as you said, but they're basically, they want to know the answer, right? They've got these questions. They want to know the answer, and they're seeking it, and they're seeking it from you, right? As men, especially with sons, they are breaking themselves against us, right? They are learning manhood through us and watching us and listening to us and challenging us in those circumstances. So for my boys, man, that's our bonfire, dance around in the loincloth, paint our faces. Like, this is the path into manhood that I'm trying to show them through giving them all of me, everything, the transparency, the mistakes, the good things, the bad things, to the point of, and I really wanted to make this point. I know it's a little bit sidetracked from necessarily this, but it all ties together in problem resolution and stuff like that. Is so many single dads out there focus on the issue with the ex-spouse. It almost becomes a contest in who's better, or the feelings that they have that are obviously negative towards the child's mother. I have my feelings about my ex-wife. We are exes for a reason, but I respect her, and I'm always going to do my best to show that respect to my boys, to the point where I'm still kind to her. I wish her Merry Christmas, right? I will tell her Happy New Year. I will do these things because I want the boys to see that. So, regardless of what is happening in your life, you can still control you. And you can still make these decisions to act through kindness and respecting yourself, regardless of what somebody else is doing. And so for those guys out there that are dealing with an ex-spouse, the popular term is baby mama. I hate saying it. I think it's cringeworthy, but respect that woman. Be kind to her, regardless of what they're doing at all times. You know what I mean? Protect yourself, but be kind, and show that example to your kids. Sons or daughters, doesn't matter. You show them that, right? And I think that's an important part for single dads, especially in my position, that they do hear that. They stop focusing on the problems with the ex, and they turn that energy into their kids, right? And focus on those kids in those circumstances.
Well, there is a big element to that, to the parenting dynamic, that I think is interesting. And I've seen it play out with men talking to Anthony on the Fatherhood Zooms, where they talk about their divorce, they talk about the ex, they talk about what they can't do and what they can't, and just it spirals out because it's so tight inside them. Like, these men are so stressed from what they went through that just their life-changing new house, splitting bills, finances, new things they got to pay for, sharing the kids. It's so much to them as a man that it really taints or dilutes the product they're giving as a father, because now they're not as fully just capable and channeled there. And one of the things that I thought was really impressive, not impressive, but a great tactic to use, is one of the men, he no longer connects the ex to him. He's like, this is my child's mother. She's not my ex-wife. She's not my baby mama. She is my child's mother. It did not work out between us. That has nothing to do with me and my kid. I'm going to focus on my kid. She goes in a separate box. So the way you're saying kids don't go into a box, I agree. The way people could put their former relationship into a box, I think that's the perfect move. That's who you were. That happened then. That's over. On to the next. Put that box on the shelf. That's, if we're being intentional here, we have to be that intentional with fatherhood. And so you have the 57. You're being intentional with, this is the situation you have. Can we talk about what the 57 is and how, as a single, you just laid it out on the table for these guys. That is done. Your relationship status does not in any way control how you operate with your children.
Right.
What's the 57 and how do individuals go about finding their way to the 57 versus the 43?
So the 57 comes off of the 43% of American homes being fatherless. When I saw that number, and I think Anthony brought it up to me on our podcast, he brought that stat up, and man, that was shocking. Because in my mind, my simple mind, 43% is damn close to 50. Now you're telling me that 50% of American homes are without fathers. Are you fucking kidding me? And we're going to talk about toxic masculinity. It's the lack of masculinity that is the fucking problem. So I sat down and I got, started counting on my fingers and toes, like, what's the other side of 43%? Well, there's 57. So the 57 is a mentality. It's a way of life. It's a thought process that I want men to have, especially fathers, to go, I don't care if you're divorced. I don't care if you are single. I don't care if you are still married. The 57% is a mentality of going, I am going to be in my home. I am going to be present as a father. And I'm going to every day make sure that I'm getting just a little bit better for my kids and how I treat them, how I raise them, how I speak to them, and guide them as they're trying to figure out their young lives. That's the mentality that I'm going to have. When it comes down to, if you ask me if I would die for my kids, you're fucking right. Right. And I can say that with full confidence. That can mean literally, or that can mean in some aspects of me that is me that's taken away from it. Right. I gave up a career that I loved because the time, the energy that it took for me to put myself into that took away from the two best things that I'll ever do in my life and my two boys. And so the 57 is a group of men. It's a call. It's a call to action. Do you want to be that, or do you want to be the 43%? Do you want to walk away from your family and just accept first, third, and fifth weekends? Do you want to be the vacation parent, or do you really want to step up? And this, for me, when you were saying about the guys that talk about compartmentalizing basically their exes, my son the other day said, Dad, I don't really care what people think about me. And I said, yeah, you do. We all do. I don't give a shit what somebody says. But here's the trick in that. When you start to focus on what you're doing that is bigger than yourself, whether it's navigating the intentional life, whether it's Oak and Rock, when you find that passion, that calling that you want to put yourself into, you don't have time for the other shit. You don't have time to worry about what John Smith down the street has to say about what I'm doing or what I'm not doing. I don't have time to worry about if maybe an ex is playing games to try to get back at me. No, I'm too involved with what I'm building with my brand, and my brand is that 14 and 9-year-old. I just happen to kind of roll that into what's called navigating the intentional life in the 57. And so for them, that 57 is that mentality that I want to spread to show other guys. For whatever reason, people will listen when I talk. And if I've got that, then I have a responsibility to fucking share that. And so that's where I roll that perception back at him and say, you do care what people think, but if you're actually going after your life, you're not going to have time for it. I don't have time for the games with the ex. I don't have time for those things. My focus is right here. I'm locked in. I'm ready to go. And so for the 57, for me, it's like, you want to be a part of that? You want to help me get better as well? Let's go. Roll on into it. But there's more to come with that. There's more to come with the 57.
Yeah, Justin, I don't think you can live intentionally until you start taking the steps to get there, right? Until you actively say, hey, I'm going to pursue this. This is something that's important to me. This is something I want to do in my life. And I think if we can, look sort of into the trap that society creates for men, where, you and Zac were talking about your kids back talking or saying no to you or questioning why, right? To me, this is where it starts. As a grown man, if we've never had that in childhood, right? If we allow our kids, if my kid says no to me or why, I don't get offended. I don't get upset. I say, so what? Who cares? He's learning how to navigate his own life, right? He's learning how to say, hey, I have some thoughts in my mind and they're not adding up and I need an explanation. Or, you know what? I don't like what my dad is doing, so I'm going to push back. If we can learn as fathers, right, that has nothing to do with us. This is how we raise our kids to be strong, by allowing them the freedom to express who they are and not allowing it to crush our little, insecure souls as men, and see it as a good thing, because that's what it really is. I think as our kids grow up, they're, and I know my kids aren't, right? They're not going to let people step all over them. They're not going to let oppressive governments control every aspect of their life. They're not going to let a little sign tell them what playground they can't go to, because they're not going to be looking for love and acceptance from anybody who's immoral or corrupt or evil for them. So I think as men, we need to recognize that, right? We need to, it's perspective. So when we want to live intentional and we want to say, hey, we're on this mission to promote men to speak up, that masculinity isn't toxic, that it's powerful. Well, we have to give that to our kids. We can't be pushing them down and saying, hey, we're in this movement and things are going to be great, but my kids need to shut the hell up because I'm the man and I know what's right. It's not going to work like that.
No.
When you look at it too, no, that's,
I had to go on that rant.
again,
it was
it's a
festering.
perfect step. No, I'm glad, man, because what you're saying and what Justin's saying, there are a lot of problem focused men, and that's not masculine at all. Problem recognition for sure. Problem focus, no, it's redundancy without progress. There are men who will say, oh, the family court system is stacked against men, and they'll spend hours and hours talking about it. Just to fucking deal with it. Work around it. Pay more money to a better lawyer. I mean, I don't know what to tell you except work. Do the work to overcome these obstacles set before you. But when you talk about, 43, 57, problem, solution, what part are you going to focus on? Well, I don't like that things aren't getting better. Then be a part of the 57%. Join the 57. Those men are fixing that problem. They're not talking about it. They're coming together to say, hey, let's swap some notes. Family law does suck, but here's great resources to navigate it, to make it a little more equal so you have a shot with the kids. Here's how you do that. All right, cool. Parenting by yourself, that is hard. Cool. Here's other single parents. I like how you said that. Not just fathers, single parents. Because moms raising their kids, there's a lot of great moms. I've coached kids who came from single mother homes, and every single time they went against everything you see on mainstream discussions about single moms. These kids were squared away. These kids tried hard. The mother was bringing them to youth sports to find a good male role model. They were doing everything. So these single parents are also presented with the choice. Give up because it's hard, or find a group like the 57 that come together and say, here's how I deal with after school if I need a babysitter. Here's how I deal with a child of the opposite sex. So you have two boys, but if you had a daughter, you've never been a little girl and you don't have a wife. So how do you navigate that? And there are mothers who've never been little boys. And that's one of the biggest issues we see with men. When they're raised by the single mother, they don't understand what's happening inside them. I'm angry and aggressive and emotional, and I'm just trying to balance all this shit that is becoming a man. As men, we love fiercely. We feel to our core. We're also ready to just smash things in the face because we're having a bad day, because we just like the outlet. That's why we love to lift weights. It's a violent thing. I'm going to pick this heavy stone up just to drop it down, and I'm going to do that 8 times, 8 to 12 times, 5 times. Are you fucking kidding me? That's not what animal is out there doing that, except men who need to smash. Modern men don't have wars every day. We don't have fields to plow, most of us. So we're not getting that out. So we do it in an intentional, I don't even know why I said quotes there, in a very intentional way. We go to the gym, we lift the weights, we do these things. So when I hear you talk about 57-43, I hear that as problem-focused people who are just going to talk about the problem, and solution-oriented people who are working towards the solution. Is that a fair assessment as to how you're approaching this?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't stand the victim mentality. I can't stand excuses. I'm exactly where I'm at right now because of my choices, because of the work that I've put in or the work that I haven't put in. And that idea of the 57, yes, it's a number, but it does come back to that. Are you going to make excuses? Are you literally going to make excuses for your family, but then expect your kids to want to respect you and follow you and listen to you? And then you're surprised when they grow up and they're having issues with relationships, or they're having issues with keeping jobs, or even worse, they're getting these addictions now. They fall into the drug and the alcohol trap because that example you have not set. You have not shown them, like, look, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. And that's the challenge that I put out to any of the guys that I talk to. And it's a challenge that I give myself every day, because it can be real easy to feel sorry for myself and go, oh, I got to do this by myself again today. And look, kind of sidebar joking, like, thank God I don't have a little girl, but I can promise you I would figure that shit out. Like, I know how to braid hair. Why I know that is for another podcast. Don't worry about it. But I do. But I can tell you right now with 100% surety that I would figure out what I need to do. And it does go back to that shout to those moms that are bringing their kids to the sporting events to find that other role model. That goes back into what I was saying earlier, is if you are a single parent, if you're a single guy, but you don't feel like you have a support system around you, you can sit there and still cry about it and be like, oh, I'm by myself, I never have, time. Bullshit. Go out and make it. Find it. Because it's amazing. You guys know this. Once you start to take that step, like Anthony said, and you start to take action, it's amazing. It's phenomenal. The people that will reach out and want to help, that will want to be involved with it, right? Because they themselves might need that, to feel like, hey, I'm helping this guy out, right? He's a single dad. He's by himself. He's fighting hard. What can I do to help? And they'll jump in on it. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to get it, whether that's with your parenting, whether that's with the business that you might be trying to start, whether it's with the gym, and, kind of final note I'll make on that is, you're talking about men and single moms. The 57 is about the fact that 43% of homes are without dads. You look at a 7-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy, genders, this kills the gender argument. A 7-year-old boy is going to be the one climbing up on top of the couch and jumping off of it onto the coffee table. And you ask him why he does it. And he goes, I don't know. It seemed cool. You're not going to see a girl doing that 90% of the time, because we are genetically made. There's that caveman fire inside of us. Like you said, we want to smash. We want to do the shit that we know that, hey, I could get hurt from this, or I can pound my chest when I'm done, and I've proven to myself that I could do it. I've accepted that fear element. Well, if at a young age we're accepting that fear element, what happens when we become men? Why do we lose that now and not continue to be willing to take that fucking risk? What I'm doing for my kids is the same fucking thing as that couch to the coffee table. I'm accepting the fear element, and I'm going anyway. And a lot of men are castrated over the years emotionally for whatever reason, whether it's our society, whether it's they're raised by females. I'm not blaming them, but they don't get that element from a man that they need. And they give up. They check out. They conform, and they become simps that just are putty and soft. But they forget that fear element. That's it.
Justin, that's a good point, brother. And the 57%, right? Remember that's still the majority, right? There's still fathers in homes raising kids. So when I look back to what you were just saying about the gender and about how young boys are being weakened, right? They used to be wild, and I believe that, right? I believe kids they're born innocent, they're born natural, they're born free, they're born wild, right? Especially young boys. And I believe that it's us that pushes them down as parents. So we can blame feminism, we can blame single mothers, but for me, the truth is, with still 50% majority, there's fathers that are completely destroying their sons for when they grow up, they're not masculine. And that, to me, that needs to change, right? That's something that needs to be addressed. Why are these boys who are still being raised in homes with dads turning into messes when they become adults? And I don't have the answer, but I think it's a good question to further the conversation, right? The things we need to look into on not just always what the problem is externally, but what's going on in our home, right? How can we improve in this house? How can I be a better dad? How can I make sure that if I do have sons, they're going to become masculine in their own adulthood? And if I do have daughters, they're going to become good feminine women when they grow up. And that's how families stay together, right? That's how we beat this number of 57 to 43, right? We want it to be 87 and 13. So I just had to throw some quick math out there real quick.
That was good.
There. One thing I want to jump in on that is we talk a lot about, and people are going to hear this regurgitated all the time, and that is it's about making a choice. You got to make a choice. Well, how do you make a choice? Right? Like you just go, oh, I'm going to do this. No, typically a choice comes from a question that's being asked because of a situation that makes you go, okay, what do I do here? What do I want to do here? Realistically, I think a lot of guys are asking the wrong fucking question when it comes to parenting, when it comes to their lives as men in general, and what example they're leading with. And so you got to get down to whatever that correct question is for you. Do I want my sons to be raised like my father raised me? Do I want them to be scared of me? And fuck all that fearful respect stuff. Like, I do not want my kids to be afraid of me until my 15-year-old bucks up to me and I'm like, no, old man strength. But, like I want to put it out there that you've got to ask the right question for yourself and have to get to a spot where you understand. Maybe it's here, maybe it's your head that you lead with, but you've got to get that right question down before you make that choice, right? To even make a choice, right? Which way you're going to go, whatever that might be, right?
And I think the question there a lot of fathers ask is, what's easy, right? How can I get my kids to listen? How can I get them to behave in a easy and simple way? And to be honest, man, right? It doesn't happen like that. Being a father is difficult. Nobody's coming to save you if you have kids. You have to step up. You have to be a man, and you have to learn how to parent effectively. You have to learn how to not damage your kids psychologically, mentally, where they grow up and their whole adulthood is faced trying to repair this damage from the childhood. And as men, we need to recognize this. We need to understand this. So to your point, as if you're a father, I don't care if you're a single dad or you have a wife, if you have kids, you need to start having conversations with other fathers. You need to get uncomfortable. You need to start speaking up and say, hey, man, this is tough. I need help. What do you guys do? Who do you know that can help me? And I think this is how things change. Men need to break out of that confinement, right? That isolation that when we're younger, we're told to sit down and shut up. And that creates the men that we see who are afraid to go to other men to get help. So once that barrier is broken, the more that we do this and other men in the game, you're going to see the shift, right? That's when you're going to see amazing things happen.
Yeah.
So with that, an action each man can take, and that's how we'll bring this one down. Anthony dropped reaching out to other men and connecting and sharing and learning. I'll go next, and then Justin, you can come up with your answer while I'm talking. How can men start this process? How can we correct this? How can we work towards a solution? Before we started recording, I shared with you that my wife got me this gold-plated torch for the cigars. That's cool. It's awesome. I share that to share this. This is empty. I have to go fill this up. I've got the butane thing in the basement. I'm going to grab my son and my daughter, and we're going to go downstairs. I'm going to show them how to fill this. I do that with almost everything in my life. I bring them with me. Anthony said, it's not easy. I disagree. I would say it's not easy. The expectation, it's not supposed to be easy in the sense that you don't have to do anything. But if you start making your kids a part of the process, if you teach them, take the long way. It's going to take me a lot longer to explain to them and do all this. But if they know, well, this is who my dad is, this is why he does what he does, here are his beliefs. If you take them with you, they see you interacting with the world and they see how your brain turns. So they understand and they know you. We talk a lot about getting to know our kids, meeting them on their level, getting to know them as the individuals they are. You also have to introduce yourself to them. And you're not perfect. Like sometimes you can be greedy. Sometimes you can be a little flippant. Sometimes you can be disorganized. Sometimes you can be extremely motivated. There's guys are covering the entire spectrum as to where they're crushing it and failing or struggling as a parent. But your kids, when they know you as the individual, it's easier for them to understand, oh, my dad's a person too. He's not a god. So when he slips up, he's just like me. So they'll also be understanding like, oh, dad's having a bad day or dad's really focused. Just like you have to understand them. Hey, maybe they're having a bad day. They're not a bad kid. They don't need to shut up and be quiet, but they don't know things. So they ask questions. The more you bring them with you, the more they know who they are. So for me, the way Anthony's saying this step, connect and reach out, I'm saying make your kids a part of more of your life. and let them know who you are as a man. And so, Justin, what's your piece of advice for men looking to go from problem focused to start working on a solution?
So when it comes to your kids, they grow up in a blink of an eye. And I want to cherish every moment that I've got with them before they want to go off and challenge the world on their own level. And so that simple feeling of I want every minute helps me go, what am I doing? What am I showing them? Because what you're talking about is, with bringing them with you to figure out how to fill up that lighter, to go into the gym together. These are all moments, and it's a memory that can be shared with them, that they keep with them, right? And so that involvement is something that is just bigger than a lot of us think about, especially as guys, right? We want to kind of push them off. The thing that I think about a lot with my boys is a thing of intent and impact, right? My parenting style for them, I can think, oh, I'm giving them tough love right now. That's my intent to help solve this problem, but I'm solving the problem for them with this intent. So what's the impact in that? How did they walk away from what I've just said, the punishment that I may have just given them? Did they learn from it on their own? Did I give them the tools necessary to problem solve? So we know that for you to get good at something, it's about repetition, right? How many times can you do it over and over and over before you start to really understand it and become good at it? For my boys, I show them through myself, through conversation, through action, doing things together, how to get through that process of not being somebody that makes excuses, not being a victim, not feeling sorry for themselves, and manning up and respecting who they are, right? And that starts with going again back to intent and impact, and I respect them, right? They say yes, sir, no, sir to me. If they ask me a question, I respond with sir, just to give them that kind of example and that respect back, especially with the 14-year-old, because he thinks it's cool. But, showing them that and connecting with that on that level, it sure as hell makes it easier in the hard times, because we've created a foundation of, if he's struggling with something, he talks to me about it. I'm more in tune, so I can ask him about it. I pick it up before he even says anything. And it's having those moments of bringing them with you, looking at what is your intent and the actual impact, and having that as a focus, and just kind of building from there and creating that foundation and that trust early on, right? Of giving them the respect that they are not just these sidebars. They are human beings. They are people with their feelings and their fears and their wants. I have to help them learn how to navigate those things, right, as young men. So that's my focus with them. That's what I look at that keeps me going daily.
Oh, it's a solid response, man. It sounds like somebody who's living an intentional life.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
All right, Justin, what do you have coming down the pipeline, and where can people find you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram at Justin Copeland _, right? Navigating the Intentional Life podcast is on Apple and Spotify. I've got my blog. Again, all of that is in my link tree. I'm on Facebook at Justin Copeland. Look for me there. I'm on Twitter at Justin L. Copeland. Guys, my social media, for the most part, is open. You need anything, you can reach out to me there. DM me. I have no problem with taking questions as long as they're respectful. And even then, I may respond if they're not. But that said, down the pipeline, the 57, I want everybody that feels that calling and that mentality. It's a challenge. If you're interested in that, if you want to take on more than what's just you, and you want to be part of something bigger, look for the 57. It's coming. It's coming. 2022 is going to be a great year. We're going to turn that 57 into 87, right?
Watch out.
Right there. The website's going to drop within the next week. And the last thing I'll put out is we're working on the book, right? The book, Navigating the Intentional Life, is coming out as well. So that'll be summer 22. End of it, ideally, I get it done. I can tell you right now, I hate editing. So that's a little bit of a process that's slowing me down the book. But other than that, you guys find me there. Good things are coming. Looking for that change, looking for those guys to step up and to continue to be a part of this process with you guys of helping other men find themselves and take it back.
Well said, brother. Always good talking to you, Justin. Appreciate
Yeah,
your time.
appreciate you, man.
So everybody that tuned in, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do the works. More importantly, apply. You know, Justin, all the links to his content is below. Check it out. Ask the question if you have one. You know, reach out so you can say, hey, man, here's my situation. What would you recommend? He gives you the advice. All right, cool. Take it, apply it. You listen to the podcast, take it, apply it. You sat there and watched this video. Take the information, apply it, pause this thing, come back, see what happened. And if you don't like the result of what you did, ask. We can mix it up. That's what we do. But none of that happens if you don't apply it. Your life will never change by watching YouTube videos. Apply the information, go out and crush it. Anthony, another great one down. Justin, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time given our way. You guys stay well. Fathers, you guys stay present.